Right after I made that Fallout 76 news video from yesterday, which if you guys missed, you can click on the little I to check out, we got a ton more news. Yeah, like literally. So here's another video on all of the latest news for Fallout 76, and there's quite a bit of it. Plus at the end, I might have a special little bonus, not directly related, but a lot of you will probably be interested in it. So first up, what I think is actually the biggest piece of news is what you get for pre-ordering Fallout 76's Tricentennial Edition, and I probably said that wrong. This is one of the special editions of the game, and we didn't know exactly what was coming with it. We just knew you'd get some new emotes, some skins, things like that, and it does cost $20 more. So are those skins and emotes worth the extra $20? But even beyond that, I think this is very important to pay attention to because we know Fallout 76 is going to have the Atomic Shop, and along with that, have those cosmetic microtransactions, things you can purchase with atoms. So this gives us a decent idea of what Bethesda thinks is worth $20 in game and what you'll probably see in that shop. Oddly enough, this didn't actually come from Bethesda directly, but rather from a tweet from Game Burton on Trent. Perhaps this was accidental and not actually supposed to go live yet, but either way, what we actually got are a number of different skins for various objects and actually an emote. So first up, we do have these new power armor skins. Something pretty interesting, as you'll probably notice, it's only for the T51, T45, T60, and XO1, not that new construction power armor that we saw in some of the gameplay. You would think it would make more sense to have a skin for the new one that a lot of people are probably going to use, but whatever, I digress. But then we also do have the spectacularly handsome Vault Boy Mascot head. This thing definitely looks pretty funny. It seems like it's actually going to be like a head you could put on your character, kind of like a helmet. But if this works similarly to how DLC items have worked in previous Fallouts, during the first week or two of Fallout 76's release, I imagine you're going to see a ton of people running around with this thing. Pretty much anyone who pre-ordered one of these special editions, because this is going to be one of the first pieces of armor that you do get. Then we get a peek at the patriotic Uncle Sam outfit and the Tricentennial commemorative photo frame. Same logic applying to this outfit. I'm sure we're going to be seeing a lot of this, especially this coupled with that mascot head. And then finally, you actually get a look at the weapon skins, that being for the hatchet, the laser rifle, and the 10mm pistol. I actually think the 10mm pistol looks by far the best of the three, with the hatchet being barely noticeable, which is kind of interesting. That's what they showed off, but there's actually a couple of other things, including a celebratory Vault Boy saluting emote. It'll probably be fairly similar to a lot of the other emotes, although I do wonder how that'll fit into the emote wheel. Obviously, they're probably going to want to add new ones of these, so will there be like a second section added? And then even beyond that, the first class Tricentennial Workshop posters. And as far as those skins on the weapons and armors go, it seems like those are specifically for those items only. Like it's not like you'll be able to take that weapon customization and actually apply it to something else. It's just those weapons shown. Just the facts though, as far as my opinions go, I imagine a lot of you guys can see this coming. I think this is kind of bad. I mean, it doesn't really seem like a good deal at all. I mean, sure, the outfit and the mascot head are particularly cool, and I think it'll be probably funny again to see those all running around. But as far as these skins go here, it seems like Bethesda is definitely evaluating these at a higher price than we see right now for Fallout 4 through its Creation Club. They just recently released a Halloween bundle, giving you 2 new skins that you can apply to armors and weapons, and a bunch of different armors and weapons, not just 3 weapons like you get with this batch. That costs 200 Creation Club credits, or roughly $2, depending on how you work out the conversion. If you do an apples to apples comparison, that $2 bundle gives you a lot more content than the skin aspect of this pre-order. Of course, there are some other things, but I wouldn't be shocked if Bethesda actually sees a decline in pre-orders of this edition because I just simply don't think it's worth it. It also makes me a little bit more wary about the pricing of this cosmetic shop, something that I think in theory could be a pretty cool concept, but in this bundle I would say probably the highest quality assets are the Uncle Sam outfit and the mascot head. And let's say that takes up, what, a quarter of the price? That'd put those two things at a $5 cost to buy them together. That's a lot of freaking money for what you're getting. Maybe I'm just reading too deeply into this. Either way, we'll know for sure in a couple weeks when the game itself releases. But moving on, we also do have Bethesda giving a response as to why the Brotherhood of Steel are in Fallout 76. If you guys missed some of my previous coverage on that, I made a full video talking about it, and basically, throughout some of the gameplay dumps, we did see that the Brotherhood have a pretty considerable presence. There's multiple notes about them found, as well as several bodies that you can loot. Well, Bethesda's explanation to this is November 2077. A month after the Great War, Army Captain Roger Maxson arrived with survivors at the California bunker of Lost Hills. There he formed the Brotherhood of Steel, who used a functioning satellite to extend their reach across America, all the way to Appalachia. And before you comment it, yes, I know I butcher that name, it just really doesn't coincide with my New York way of speaking. So honestly, my reaction to this is kind of disappointment. I really wish Bethesda would have just held out to the criticisms. I really don't think they needed to justify their actions ahead of time. We get the beta in just 5 days at this point, and we would have found out the answer to this question. I think it would have been a lot more fun for some people to go in game and actually just uncover these notes, being able to piece together the story and actually get a lot more context. Now, with that being said, as far as my opinions on the Brotherhood now that we have an explanation from Bethesda, to be honest, I would have been totally fine with them not being in the game. I maintain my initial reasoning that one of the main reasons I think they included them is to actually sell cosmetics for that faction. I don't really think it's playing a huge role in selling the game because it hasn't been a main aspect of the marketing campaign, but it is by far the most loved faction of Fallout fans, and I'm sure a lot of them are going to want to buy that skin for their power armor or that outfit for their character. I think without a doubt this explanation makes sense, and I actually think it could be an interesting aspect to the Brotherhood's lore, such as maybe after doing this, some of those separate groups like the one in West Virginia got attacked by the locals, or some series of events happened, and that led to the Brotherhood culture that we actually see in some of the other games like New Vegas and 3, where the Brotherhood is way more reclusive and doesn't really include everyone or try and save society as a whole. They tried that, it didn't work, so they adopted new beliefs. Now that's all total speculation. I have no idea if that'll turn out to be true, but overall my takeaway on this is, I think this is a solid explanation for the Brotherhood in West Virginia, and I think it could have some pretty cool takeaways for the lore and actually add to it in interesting ways, but at the same time, overall, I think I still would have just rather see a different and new faction. Then we have the news that you could actually download Fallout 76 right now on Xbox One if you purchased a physical copy of the game. I talked about this just yesterday, and actually getting this download is a little bit more complex, and according to one viewer who messaged me, apparently Bethesda support isn't being clear on how this works. So either way, if you purchased a physical copy, first you have to redeem your beta code on Bethesda.net. After you do that, you should be able to go to your transaction history page, and then next to the beta itself, you'll see a little details link, and if you click on that, you'll see your Xbox One code. Redeem that on Xbox One, and you'll be able to download Fallout 76's beta. You can't actually play this until October 23rd, but if you have slow internet or you just want to get it done ahead of time, you can do that. The download's going to be just under 50 gigabytes. For those of you who also download the stress test on Xbox One, according to this tweet, even though it's not an explicit denial or confirmation that there'll be another stress test, it definitely seems like there won't be. So for those of you who are sitting on that stress test download, which is also just under 50 gigabytes, you can probably delete that on Xbox One at this point. It seems like the future stress tests will likely be on PC and maybe even PS4. And that's really all the news and my opinions on them for Fallout 76. This video is a little bit different. It's not as objective, definitely more opinionated, but I obviously did include those little skip ahead points if you only cared about the objective aspects. But I also felt like it was kind of important to talk about those things, especially the microtransaction model. That's something that I think a lot of people are glossing over with Fallout 76. And of course it is going to be totally opt-in. If you don't want to do it, you don't have to, but also at the same time, it's probably going to be a pretty big part of this game, and even though many of us will say we won't put money into it, a lot of us probably will end up putting money into it. And as a little bonus I mentioned at the start of this video, I also actually want to touch on the release date of Starfield and the Elder Scrolls 6. This is another piece of news that came out, and I wasn't sure if it really deserved its own video, but some of you were asking my views and thoughts on this. I covered a lot more Starfield back when I thought it was coming out this year. But either way, in an interview with Eurogamer, Pete Hines had a quote. I'll just read most of the quote for you because it's pretty descriptive. On the question of when should we expect to hear more about Starfield and the Elder Scrolls 6, Pete Hines responds with, a while from now and really a long while from now, respectively. Actually, I should not be quite so dismissive of the question, which is to say, the time frame for Bethesda Game Studios titles has not changed at all. Time frame wise, it'd still be about as long as you'd expect when you look at Fallout 3 to Skyrim to Fallout 4 to Fallout 76. It's still going to be those periods of time. That hasn't changed, or at least I don't think it will change from that based on what I know. So there's actually a big part in the middle of that quote that I actually cut out, but the points relevant to what I want to talk about are those time frame aspects. So to some of you, this information might just be like, well, duh. But on the other hand, I was predicting something quite different. The actual time frame between those games is roughly 3 to 4 years. But a lot of people were actually speculating that going forward, Bethesda would kind of ramp that up, start releasing games on a more fast-paced schedule than they had previously. The main evidence behind this was that they simply grew. In interviews past, Todd Howard said that roughly 100 people were working on Fallout 4. In some more recent interviews, he's talked about how about 400 people are working at Bethesda right now. We've seen this in the form of 3 new studios opening up over the past couple of years, and even beyond this, that was actually furthered by the fact that following Fallout 4, Bethesda actually began work on Starfield immediately. They acquired that new studio, Bethesda Game Studios Austin, and they got multiplayer working in the engine, and while that task was being completed, the core office in Maryland, the people that actually created Fallout 4 and Skyrim, were devoting most of their resources to Starfield. So the fact that Starfield still is going to be 3 to 4 years away is a little bit of a shock. I'm still pretty skeptical of this tweet. I personally predicted Starfield releasing in 2020. A lot of other people were a bit more optimistic and actually saying a 2019 release was plausible. So I don't know, maybe just the hopeful aspect of me that doesn't want to believe this, that still wants to think Starfield could be a couple of years away, but I'm not really sure what incentive Bethesda would have to lie here. More games coming sooner I think would only be good news. That's why they revealed the roadmap in the first place, as they said in this interview. Not everyone's super happy with Fallout 76. The reactions have definitely been more mixed than with some past games, and having a reassurance that a new game is only a couple of years away could actually be some good news. But I guess at the same time, they don't want to undercut Fallout 76 as that's just around the corner. But either way, that's pretty much going to wrap it up for the Fallout part. But if you do want to stick around, I also do have today's psychology fun fact of the day. And what I want to talk about is deception. So deception is something that gets very dramatized in TV, video games, movies. Somebody actually lying and then somebody trying to detect that deception through various methods. A lot of people know that looking up into the air or looking up to the right and that's supposed to mean somebody's lying. That's totally bogus. That's not actually true at all. And just overall, as a good statistic to know, we are particularly bad at detecting deception. Overall, specialized groups that have training in detecting deception get it right about 54% of the time. Some groups have standouts, such as the Secret Service is actually particularly good, getting around a roughly 63% accuracy rate when detecting deception, but depending on which study you look at, there might be some variations there. And just overall, as a general takeaway, we're bad at it. One of the main reasons for this is people look at the wrong things. If you look at somebody's face, that's not really a good indication. We actually are very good at controlling our facial movements and even fairly good at controlling our body language. Even beyond that, it's actually really hard to distinguish if increased stress is a result of lying or is it just a result of being interviewed or being in a tense situation. One of the best ways to actually detect lying is voice pitch. That's something we don't have a ton of control over, and it's not something we think to control. There's high correlations between people speaking faster and at a higher pitch than normal, and that's the best indicator of lying. And just to address one other thing, a lot of people associate the polygraph with a good detector of deception. It's really not. It's not necessarily a bad detector. If you have the right person administering it and you're actually doing some systematic observations with it, it definitely can be a decent thing, but you can't actually use a polygraph in court. There's a Supreme Court case that outlawed it altogether, and just overall in the scientific community, the polygraph isn't looked at as this kind of end-all ultimate solution to figuring out if somebody is lying. Either way, that's pretty much going to wrap it up for this video. As always, again, I thank you for watching. Hopefully you found it informative, but with that, I do hope to see you guys all next time. Later.